So today we're going to be talking about different types of pleasure. Now, the way that I structured today's class is basically it, it's it's gonna make sense. It's gonna make sense at the end. Okay. Okay. So first we'll talk about your pleasure origin story. Then we'll talk about understanding pleasure, and we'll get into the theories of pleasure. We'll get into the philosophy of pleasure. Then we'll watch a quick video that asks, "Would you opt for a life with no pain?" Then we're going to talk about what do we find pleasure in, the peak end rule. Then we're going to have a show and tell, and we're going to have a Q&A. So that's pretty much how today is going to run. So first off, make sure you get prepared for today's show and tell. Get prepared to share a photo of something that brings you pleasure, and we'll pull the pictures. We'll pull everybody's picture when it's time. Only one picture, because everybody's gonna have a chance to talk about their picture and why they chose that picture. So I just wanted to make sure everybody got prepared for that. All right. So let's start our conversation off about our pleasure origin story. So can you remember, or what's your pleasure origin story? Like, what was your first memories of pleasure? How did pleasure sort of come into your life? How did you recognize what that is, or how did you, what were the first things that you found pleasurable, so to speak? And I'm gonna open the floor to anybody to answer.
Okay, so I will go first. So my pleasure origin story started out with just a giggle. Just a giggle. And then it started with a giggle, started being a laughter, then everybody was laughing, and that was my first mention of pleasure. Like, okay, pleasure is supposed to be enjoyable. Then throughout my life, I found out different pleasures had different pains in them, but the pain was pleasurable because it taught me a lesson and it taught me ways of life. And that's my pleasure origin story. Orange Digger, do you have something to say? Keep looking. Oh, my pleasure origin story started with a cigarette in a hand. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else want to go in for that one?
Hey, I guess I can go. It,
You breaking up.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I quit. Hello? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I can't hear anything. That's hilarious. Anyway. Yo, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yo. Mic check, 1 2 1 2.
It's breaking up, but we can hear you.
I used to suck my thumb when I was a kid. Like, earliest form of masturbation, as they say. Yeah, I was sucking my thumb. Self-soothing myself. So that's my origin story.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? You wanna go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think so for me, I think my pleasure origin story, it's not one of a sexual nature, in its inception. I feel like I would call myself really liking and enjoying like crayons and paper and paint and all this stuff, and just being able to like see like my hands and my mind work together and manifest like something on a piece of paper. really like excited me and inspired me. So I really like spent all my time just doing that, seeing how things just kind of worked out. And like that whole process was pleasurable for me. That became a hobby, my passion, my art. So that I feel like that was my first pleasure. But even to piggyback off of, is it Javon? Yeah, I was a thumb sucker as well. So I do recall, that soothing, growing up doing that as well. Yeah, so yeah, that's me.
Thank you. Sorry. Anybody else?
Mine as a kid was always looking at the stars at night. I don't know what it was about my weird ass imagination as a kid, but I used to all okay. So look, I used to see that like what was them damn cereal called? Kabooms. Y'all remember them damn cereals? Them damn bootleg ass cereals that came with the little marshmallow stars up in there. I don't know why, but I thought as a kid that the stars up in the sky with the little marshmallow things and they were just far as fuck away. So my life's goal as a kid early on was like me wanting to reach all the way out there and like or like get a spaceship or something and go get it because I was thinking it was a marshmallow and I could eat it, not knowing it was a big ass ball of fire. So yeah, that was mine.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
You welcome.
All right. I didn't hear anyone's stories, but I can share mine. My earliest memory of pleasure is my dreams. When I go to sleep at night, I always go on a huge adventure, and I would tell my brother every day about my dreams. And then it was going great until he was like, "Man, I didn't have a dream last night. Um, can we can we have can we have another talk when I do have a dream? Maybe tomorrow." And I was like, "All right, let's go." Then the next day came and he was like, "Ooh, I didn't have a dream. Ooh, I don't think it's fair. You have a dream every night and so detailed. Maybe when I have a dream, then we can talk." So that was like the beginning of my storytelling. And I just have so much different adventures in my dream that I didn't know what was memory and what was a dream.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Okay, Kim.
Anybody else?
I'll go.
Okay.
So my pleasure origin story was rooted in childhood regarding compliments. That was the thing that cheered me up more than anything. Whenever I was told something nice about myself that I knew myself to be true, that was like an adrenaline rush of electricity for me. And so to infuse that with even like sex, for example, that's another thing, like words of affirmation in a nutshell for me. And I'm complete.
Thank you. Thank you, Antonio, for sharing. Anybody else? All right. For me, I would say my pleasure origin story kind of started with, um, I would say books or with like knowledge. I had a thing for like understanding how things worked. And like my dad used to call me like an inventor. Like I used to love like taking things apart and putting it back together. Um, I also loved, I don't know, touch. Like I love there was something about me when I was a really, really young kid. I knew like my body. And I don't know. I had this thing with like showing people my penis, showing people my butt. Like I was always like a naked kid. I would never like to wear clothes. I was always like taking my clothes off because I didn't. So I was just hyper aware of like my body and sensations. Um, and so yeah, so I ended up having a lot of like sexual experiences as a child, like really, really young, before most people would even, most kids before they were even thinking about stuff like that. But I guess some of us were. So let's move on. So let's try to reshape our pleasure origin story. Let's try to reshape what pleasure is in our minds. That's what we're going to be trying to do throughout this course today. So for those of us who don't really know what pleasure is, most of our origin stories are about discovering what sex is. Pleasure can be sexual, but it also doesn't have to be. You could have a healthier relationship with sex and your body by defining what pleasure means for you without the influence of sex and attraction. So, can you define your pleasure? Do you truly understand what pleasure is? Do you feel fulfilled, liberated, and satisfied from how you learned about pleasure? Where did you first learn about pleasure? We all know what the word pleasure is, but can you remember a time when you were actually taught about what it means? So anybody can take any one of these questions however they'd like and expound upon it.
So I'll go. I was taught that pleasure was something that you enjoy, was never sexual. That's why I said with my origin of pleasure story that a giggle, then laughter, then it being a whole room full of people laughing together was pleasure. Before it was ever like, I guess in my teenage year, that's when I knew pleasure and pain and sex were all coming all in one. But I was always taught that pleasure was something that you enjoy, that it was something that gratified you, and also it stimulates the happy hormones. Then what's the other questions? Because I can't, I'm blind and I can't see.
Do you feel fulfilled, liberated, and satisfied from how you learned about pleasure? For those
Yes.
of you who are on your phone, you can also turn your phone sideways and you can see you would be able
Oh,
to see it.
definitely that, because I'm happy that I learned that before it got sexual, that and that pain came with pleasure, and that also that happiness came with pleasure, and that's why I keep a nostalgic feeling about myself and always love unconditionally because of what I got taught about pleasure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
Yeah, so it's a so do we answer all three?
You can answer in whichever way you'd like.
Okay, I'll go for them all. It says, do you truly understand what pleasure is? Yes. For me, I value the do no harm principle. And to me, it's ethical pleasure. It's like hedonism in a good way when I can honor myself and whoever I'm with. Number two, do you feel fulfilled, liberated, satisfied by how you learned about pleasure? Yes, I did a lot of self education. Like some of you, um, like a lot of Black households, it was religious, but I had to let go of religion to fully enjoy the pleasure of being, a pansexual person. And I had to learn that being human is not bad and feeling good is not bad. Um, it's a glass of number three. Where do you first learn about pleasure? I would say I learned about how it made me feel when it came to like the compliments I was mentioning earlier, or when I first learned that, you know, sex can be rewarding, especially with sensuality, whether you're monogamous or non-monogamous, married or unmarried. So more self-education. Lastly, we all know what the word pleasure is, but can you remember a time when you were taught about exactly what it means? Yes, I remember my conference of sex education in middle school. We had to learn the dolls of different, gender orientations, about genitalia, and they gave us the scientific and the medical explanation of sensual sexuality and eroticism. I was like, this is awesome. So I love the sex positivity I was taught even in grade school. I'm complete.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's really interesting. You don't hear that. You don't hear that often. Anybody else want to share?
Very by pleasure. Okay, so I'm still learning about pleasure because that is a topic that Orange Digger still has to figure out. Now, let's see what's the next question. Read the question to me, Quincy. It says, do you feel fulfilled or liberated and satisfied from how you learned about pleasure? I'm learning about pleasure from all them, so yeah, of course I do. Okay, let's go with the next question. Where did you learn about pleasure? And you need some glasses, but you need some glasses. Now, look, I learning from pleasure from y'all because like you see, my cigarette brings me lots of pleasure, and also making people laugh and doing AI art is my pleasure things. But I'm also a single puppet and looking baby for all y'all. Okay, thank you. Orange Digger has said enough. Thank you, everybody. What may I say?
Thank you. Thank you for
Why-
sharing. All right.
Why are you doing this? Stop this domestic violence. Oh,
Yeah, for me, the question is, do you truly understand what pleasure is? Um, I'm just of the school of thought, like no one truly can understand anything like completely. So, if I apply it to that, I don't. But also in the sense of like, which kind of leads to the next question about like your first experience about pleasure. My first experience and how I learned about it was it was learned in a more of a twisted signature way, as being someone who was a victim of molestation. How I first experienced like that sexual experience really kind of um, like twisted how I viewed that. And so growing up with those experiences and then learning what pleasure is as an adult man and then understanding like more things about it, and just about myself, like I'm learning. So I feel like I'm a student of life, as I'm a student of pleasure. So I'm learning every day about it, what I like about it, what I don't. Um, pleasure is different in different age periods, like your different times. Like as you know, like when you eat candy. I was eating a piece of chocolate today, and I was just like, this is extremely sweet. But as a child, I would have been like, man, like this is it. Like I'll eat this whole candy bar. But like those different like opposites. The pleasure is still the same, but it's just different experiences with it. So I'm just learning as I go, and yeah, that's me. Thank you for my TED talk.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Anybody else?
All right. For me, pleasure is joy. When I think of pleasure, I think of joy. So, do you feel fulfilled, liberated, and satisfied from how you learn about pleasure? I learned about pleasure when I was a kid, when you have fun and you play games, and if you're happy, then yeah, you're experiencing pleasure, you're experiencing joy. So yeah, I do. Where did you first learn about pleasure? When I was a kid, you know, like even though like as adults, we may associate pleasure with sexual stuff, I still think about joy. It's like, hey, what makes you happy? What brings you joy? What brings you pleasure? It's different words, but it's almost the same in my book.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
Hey, it's Jovan.
Oh, hey.
I Yeah. I find pleasure in letting my inner child run free. And I recognize that whenever I'm doing the stuff that I said I would do as a kid, but I never really got around to doing it, when I'm doing it, I get a lot of pleasure. So it's going back to pretty much what everybody is saying with being not so much being a kid, but like it's right on the tip of my tongue, but it just left me and I'm blaming the weed. Um, yeah. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, yeah, it does.
And I hope I answered the question.
Mm-hmm.
Or no. Okay. I'm gonna let it
Thank
go.
you. Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else want to go in? Okay. Well, I'll go. So for me, um, yeah, I can't say that as a kid I understood what pleasure was. I knew that there were certain things that made me happy, or certain things that I enjoyed, but I guess I didn't know what the overall experience, you know what I mean, of pleasure and yeah, how it related to me, and how it was relative to everyone around me as well. So I'll go on to the next part. So is pleasure a sensation? Do y'all think it's a sensation?
I think it can be as a part of it. It's aspects to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a sensation because it does mess with your neurological system. And also we have these hormones that need pleasure to activate. So yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. The tingling on the back of my neck is definitely a sensation.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Before we move on? Well, it's okay. We all know. Everybody's basically going to say the same thing. So pleasure is usually associated with sensory pleasures like the enjoyment of food or sex. One theory says that pleasure is a sensation. For example, whenever we experience pleasure, there's a particular sensation that we get. A pleasurable experience of eating chocolate involves the sensation of the taste of chocolate together with the pleasure sensation. The issue with this idea, however, is that sensations are physically located somewhere in the body. And if you consider the pleasure of, for example, seeing a beautiful sunset, there's no specific place in the body where we experience that kind of pleasure. So, is pleasure linked to desire?
Yes,
Once,
definitely.
yeah. Go ahead, Quincy. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Javon.
I was gonna say that once your body has that sensation, it knows that it wants it again. And it's hardwired to go after it again, which can be both a very good and a very bad thing, depending on what your sensation is derived from.
Absolutely. Okay. So, another theory says that pleasure is linked to experiences that fulfill a desire you had. For example, in the example before, the first person had a desire of the taste of chocolate. The issue with this theory is that while it's often the case that we desire something first and then enjoy it, this cannot always be the case. In fact, often the opposite seems to be true. We have to learn first that something is enjoyable before we start to desire it. So it's kind of like this cycle, or maybe not a cycle, but you need both, right? You need the sort of sensation and you need the desire because they kind of go hand in hand. And once you've sort of had that sensation for the first time or whatever that feeling is, that's how you link it to pleasure. Because the more you do it, you feel this sort of pleasure. So, would you opt for a life with no pain? So we're gonna watch this short video, and let's see.
I'm just gonna say you bad.
Don't advertise on Google Ads or Facebook.
So yeah, while the
before
video is playing, I
blocking
want y'all to
broad
think about the
releases.
question:
Not a
Would
fun
you
fact.
opt for a
One out
life
of every
with no pain?
Imagine if you could plug your brain into a machine that would bring you ultimate pleasure for the rest of your life. If you were given the choice to sign up for that kind of existence, would you? That's the question philosopher Robert Nozick posed through a thought experiment he called the experience machine. The experiment asks us to consider a world in which scientists have developed a machine that would simulate real life while guaranteeing experiences of only pleasure and never pain. The catch? You have to permanently leave reality behind. But you'll hardly know the difference. Your experiences will be indistinguishable from reality. Life's natural ups and downs will just be replaced with an endless series of ups. Sounds great, right? It may seem like a tempting offer, but perhaps it's not as ideal as it sounds. The experiment was actually designed to refute a philosophical notion called hedonism. According to hedonists, maximizing net pleasure is the most important thing in life, because pleasure is the greatest good that life has to offer. For hedonists, the best choice that a person could make for himself is one that brings him the greatest possible amount of pleasure, while bringing him no pain. Limitless pleasure minus zero pain equals maximum net pleasure, or in other words, the exact scenario the experience machine offers. Therefore, if hedonism is your philosophy of choice, plugging in would be a no-brainer. But what if there's more to life than just pleasure? That's what Nozick believed he was demonstrating through his experience machine thought experiment. Despite the machine's promise of maximum net pleasure, he still found reason not to plug in, as do many other experimenters who consider the proposition. But what could possibly dissuade us from choosing a future of ultimate pleasure? Consider this scenario. Betsy and Xander are in a loving, committed relationship. Betsy is head over heels and has never felt happier. However, unbeknownst to Betsy, Xander has been romancing her sister Angelica with love letters and secret rendezvous for the duration of their relationship. If Betsy found out, it would destroy her relationships with both Xander and Angelica, and the experience would be so traumatic she would never love again. Since Betsy is in blissful ignorance about Xander's infidelity, hedonists would say she's better off remaining in the dark and maintaining her high level of net pleasure. As long as Betsy never finds out about the relationship, her life is guaranteed to go on as happily as it is right now. So is there value in Betsy knowing the truth of her situation? Imagine if you were Betsy. Would you prefer to know the truth? If the answer is yes, you'd be choosing an option that sharply decreases your net pleasure. Perhaps then you believe that there are things in life with greater intrinsic value than pleasure. Truth, knowledge, authentic connection with other human beings. These are all things that might make the list. By never learning the truth, Betsy is essentially living life in her own personal experience machine. World happiness that's not based in reality. This love triangle is an extreme example, but it mirrors many of the decisions we make in day-to-day life. So whether you're making a choice for Betsy or for yourself, why might you feel reality should be a factor? Is there inherent value in real experiences, whether pleasurable or painful? Do you yourself have more value when you're experiencing real life's pleasures and pains? Nozick's experiment may not provide all the answers, but it forces us to consider whether real life, though imperfect, holds some intrinsic value beyond the pleasure of plugging in.
All right. So, what did y'all think about that?
I'll go and I'll say, for the most part, I wouldn't want to live with pain. And yes, my pleasures link with my desire and its sensation for me. The only pain I don't mind is like BDSM type stuff. I don't mind that. That's good pain. But other than that, I wouldn't want to live with pain. I'm just being real.
I got something to say about this. I was just shocked to see me drop my cigarette, and I was like, man, that woman, that's a typical situation nowadays. But having lots of pleasure is like eating too much of me. Wow, this is very interesting.
All right, thank you. Anybody else wanna?
Yeah, I'll go. So yeah, for me, what I did is I actually put myself in that scenario, and if I was literally given the opportunity to feel endless pleasure, what would life look like? And as I'm thinking about it, like you almost get, for me, I got sad because it's like you don't, life doesn't really have value unless it's like there's like challenges and like um it's the highs and lows that bring value to life. Like you can't just have highs. Like it doesn't shape it doesn't shape you, right? It doesn't make you a better person. It doesn't allow societies to grow if everything is just okay, right? But it's the challenges that we have to face every day in our personal lives, as a community and globally, that really bring value. So all of that stuff comes with pain, and that's humanity. That's the human experience. And if you strip any part of that away, then what do you have? Like, it's just it's almost like you're in a trance. You ever been in like one of those EDM parties, and you just kind of and that's kind of a life of pleasure. It's just like you're just almost numb. That's my interpretation of that experiment. So yeah, thank you for my take.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
Yo, yes. It sounds like meth. Um, it's literally your pleasure centers just on and just not going off. So it literally is meth. And in theory, it sounds great, but then you realize there is no pleasure without pain. What do you find pleasurable if you don't have anything to compare it to? Two sides to every coin. So you need one in order to have the other. So I'm intrigued to know how they would find out what is a pleasurable experience if you're not feeling any pain or any loss or any of the downs to go with the ups and shit. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
I'm just gonna say this. I feel like we all as humans want a life of no pain. But I feel like as just like very early on as a kid, I feel like I always ask myself that question, like, okay, what would my life look like if I didn't have to deal with this, that, and the fourth, even though it's just I feel like the world is so damn I used to feel that as a kid the world was so damn big and so goddamn hard already, and I ain't even went through half of it yet. But yeah, I would really just think about that, like, what would life look like without no pain there, without nothing. Like every day I'm just happy all day, and I feel like sometimes the true meaning of life is just to sit over there and try to find that happiness, like it whether it be in yourself, like in something else, in a hobby, a person, whatever it might be. I feel like you can, I don't know, it's weird. You can't really have life without no pain in it. Or I feel like since we only know life without no pain, we only have that perspective. So it's like until I don't know, we gotta go through it to know. I don't know. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Star.
You up?
As for me, like if we had no pain, then and the constant thing is high, the high will be normal. It will be neutral, and there's no contrast. And we have no contrast. Life will be boring. because you already have that. That's the new level of anything. So we're here to experience different emotions, and if we don't have some of those hormones, then we probably find other things to do, but it'd be like a dystopia. Like this is right, but something must be up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Personally, for me, I feel like it's kind of a mix of what everybody said. This idea that if there was no pain, we wouldn't have anything to fight against. And I think what brings our lives value is when we are able to overcome adversity in whatever form that looks like. When we're able to do something that either somebody told us that we couldn't do, or we're able to do something that we thought we couldn't do, or being able to this uphill battle, or fighting for something gives our many of our lives purpose. So that's my thought on that. Moving on. So now that we're talking about we all know that pleasure is relative, and we've talked a little bit about the philosophy behind pleasure. So who, in this scenario, whose pleasure matters to you most?
That is a great question. I say good question. That's a great question because I'm a selfless type of person, and like I said in the message, somebody asked me if money wasn't the thing, what would you do? And I was like, if money wasn't a big issue for me, all that, I would still want to make the world happy and still make the world more empathetic than sympathetic, and just to make sure that you happy before I'm happy. And if you're happy, then I know that my happiness will come. So yeah, that's a great question though.
Thank you for sharing, Quincy. Anybody else?
My pleasure matters most to me. And whoever else is I decide to take up the mantle for at any given moment matters.
Okay, that's real. Anybody else?
I think for me, you would think by human nature, I guess we're like selfish beings or whatever, and you think our pleasure matters. So I would go by that initially, but then I think about my personality type and how, um, I'm always putting people before myself, and so am I putting their pleasure or their convenience or pleasure before mine? And so I think about that, and so. Um, that question it's kind of tough to answer who matters the most because there are selfish things I do and my pleasures or whatever, but like in life I kind of um choose other people's pleasures mine. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
Whose pleasures matters the most? I would definitely have to say it would be mine or the people who that matter to me. That would be it.
Period.
For me, it will be me.
Yeah, I think for this we're all gonna say ourselves, right? I think a part of this, well, not entirely.
Yeah.
But I think there's always like a caveat to that. Um, and so it says pleasure also plays a central role in philosophy, usually under the label hedonism. According to the egoistic version of hedonism, each person should aim at maximizing their own pleasure. Pleasure seeking behavior is a common phenomenon and dominates our conduct at times. This is usually understood in combination with egoism, i.e., that each person only aims at his or her own happiness or their own happiness. I don't know why it says her there, but whatever. So, in that case, pleasure is not only related to how we act, but also to how we ought to act, which belongs to the field of ethics. So if you've ever heard the word utilitarian, utilitarians believe in increasing the amount of good things, such as pleasure and happiness, and decreasing the amount of bad things, such as pain and unhappiness, in the entire world. So it's not just a thing about just me. It's a feeling of we have to solve this issues for everyone or for the group. So how do you know what is pleasurable? How do you determine what a pleasurable experience is? Like what tells you, oh, that was pleasurable, uh, because you laughed a lot, because you smiled a lot. Is that what tells you?
The overall feeling of peace in that moment, whatever it might be.
Okay. Anybody else?
I was going to say, go back to that question where it's like, does the pleasure now, does it facilitate, what was it? It was like a whole, like 3 words. And that's what I think you will know if that's pleasurable, if it's those 3 words, because I think when it comes to pleasure, you have to hit the body first, then the mind, and then whatever. So, and sometimes to add it even for the genitals, being that it's okay, this is something that I like, and it hits all 3 of those, so this is pleasurable. And you have to learn what's pleasurable.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think how do you know what pleasurable? I think your body tells you, right? Your body knows. You may not always know or understand something, but and not in a sexual way. Like your body, like if you have ice cream for the first time and the baby knows it's very cold, right? And they may make a reaction because it's the first time they're experiencing that cold sensation, but then they taste the sweetness of whatever the ice cream's made of. And it's like, I don't care about the pain I just endured. I want it again. So it's like their body chemically knows, like, hey, I want whatever is causing, that discomfort for the moment, and we'll work around it, and let's induce this pleasure that we're getting from the flavor. So the body knows.
That's a very good assessment. I liked your example. Anybody else? Thank you. We'll go on. Oh crap! What happened? So it's essentially exactly what Adrian just said. Um, we all experience pleasure differently, as pleasure is relative to what each person desires. Pleasure forms one component of several different emotions. The degree to which something is experienced as pleasurable not only depends on its experience, on its appearance, sound, taste, texture, etc., but also on the beliefs about its history, about the circumstances of its creation, about its rarity, fame, price, etc. For example, a sweater that has been worn by a celebrity is more desired than an otherwise identical sweater that is not, even if it was washed. So imagine if you got a sweater from Lil Nas or something like that, or a T-shirt from Lil Nas, like you would want the shirt to be unwashed, which is weird, right? But that somehow makes it more valuable. And so, why does this work? So similar to what Adrian said, this is called the peak end rule. So what's happening is your memory is actually playing tricks on you. When you assess an experience, you tend to forget or ignore the actual duration of that experience. Instead, you are actually what you're actually rating the experience on is based on two key moments: the best or the worst moment, what they call the peak, and the ending. So what's indisputable is that when we assess our experience, we don't average them by minute, right? We're averaging them by the overall experience. So positive endings, for example, to an experience can detract from an overall negative negative experience. For example, if you go to a concert and it has really bad sound quality, but at the end of the concert, they play your favorite song, your memory of the experience will overall be more positive, even though the music, the sound was bad, or whatever happened. And similarly, with negative endings, they can also detract from the overall impression of a experience, even if it was essentially positive or pleasurable. For example, a bad flight experience on the way home from a vacation can take away from the overall trip, even if the vacation was essentially positive. Or a breakup of a relationship is also a common example, as we'll always remember the end of that relationship, but we don't remember a lot of the good times. You know what I mean? We'll always remember, what happened at the end, that breakup. So and that's essentially what the peak in rule deals with. It's how our brains assesses good and bad situations, or pleasurable and non-pleasurable experiences. So if you're having, think about when you think about a lot of the apps that we use, right? A lot of the apps that, like, think of Duolingo. When you use Duolingo and you're using you're doing the things, you're making the right answers. For some reason, you get this like thing that says, "Hey, you're doing great. You got 10 answers right in a row." And what it's doing, it's constantly reminding your brain. It's giving you these peaks, right? It's giving you this high, like, "Oh, I did great. I did great." And then at the end, you get this huge celebration. It's like, "Oh yeah, you completed a lesson." And that's how they've learned to use that, in marketing as well. You give a person little bits here and there. You give them a little bit of pleasures here and there, and even if they have a bad experience throughout that, those peaks and that end experience is what is going to change that overall experience for that person and make sure that they come back. That's how that works. So that's how people have basically been able to use our pleasures against us, which is crazy, right? So now let's do our show and tell. Y'all got y'all pictures ready? I bet not one of y'all got a picture ready.
What is it?
So
You are very correct.
I got everyone.
You
prepared.
distracted me. You knew I was going to forget about a damn
Show and
picture.
tell. Show and tell about what? Tell us.
So you're gonna show us a picture of something that brings you pleasure, and you're gonna tell us about it.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna see if I can.
Oh, we gotta go to the chats. How we do this?
See, this is why I said this is why I was trying to prepare y'all, because I already knew. I already knew.
Because how the hell do we send the picture?
That's a good question.
Picture.
Actually, can we just change our profile pictures to it?
Can we? No.
Let's see here.
Yeah, I see it. I can upload a picture into the thing. Okay, that's my picture.
I can't even see a damn thing.
You can't see
I
it?
can't see it. Where do you send it at?
In the
In the
chat?
Zoom chat?
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Yeah, download.
You got to download to see it. You should have told.
Oh, I didn't even see the download. I don't care to see it. Maybe we should change the profile picture. But I don't know how to change it on my phone.
I was gonna say, Mike, you should have everybody see your picture in Discord, or you can't do that. Or is everybody able to see one at a time?
Okay, here's my picture though. Maybe you can't. Okay. Well, I'm sure y'all saw it. Y'all figured it out. There we go.
Okay, explain it. Walk us through this.
So this picture, this is my first time going to Portugal. I had made some friends at the hostel that I was volunteering at, and yeah, I think for me, what really brings me pleasure is connecting with people, and especially like when we're from different backgrounds, different cultures, and being able to build a bridge in a way, I guess that's what does it for me. I also really enjoy traveling and being in other countries. So that's me. Yeah. Okay. And Adrian, looks like Adrian changed his too.
Yeah, I changed mine to it's my screensaver, but it's my nephew Josiah, and that's one of my favorite pictures of him because he just filled with so much like joy and innocence, and he was just like spazzing out, like he was just happy. I think I gave him something. He was just excited that day, and so yeah, that's me.
Thank you. Did y'all figure out how to send stuff in the chat? Or no? Oh, yeah. Okay, I see Javon's.
Yeah. So one thing that I do for pleasure is like just go for walks. And I have the pleasure of being in New York City, so there's always something to see. But on Bronx River, which is not too far from the house, I got this view for whenever I just like need to chill. And I find it pleasurable. And I get to walk out and see the shit every day if I so choose. And so, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that. I'll agree with that. Like a nice walk is very pleasurable. Okay, I see you, Katera.
For me, I love being on stage. I love performing. I love speaking. I love performing poetry and telling stories and speaking. And this was when I was in Orlando in March. And it was at a women empowerment event. I'd been there in Houston before, and I was the only Asian, but that did not deter me. I went there again. Everyone else was Black. People of color, so. And there was like, I did a poem before. They was like, we need to hear her again. So when they was doing the dinner, I was all dressed up and I did my thing, and they had professional photographers there. It was awesome.
Yeah,
You guys see some of the performances on my Instagram. Woo, some clips of it.
you have clips of that specific one?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I gotta see.
Yeah, and the person, her name is Stormy Wellington. She was like, oh, she wants to speak on stages with me all around the world. You guys better get her autograph now because she's gonna blow up. And then everyone knew my name. Like, even like it was so many people. People was taking pictures with me. I was like, wow. They was like, you need to do your thing, girl. You need to post more, which Quincy been telling me forever now. But I'm posting more.
I love it. I love it so much. Thank you for sharing, Katera. Okay, and then we got wait, hold on. Where did everybody's face go? The pictures, yeah. Okay. So Star, what you got? Did you get something, Star?
Yes, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Okay. 1 second. 1 second.
Okay. Quincy, you got something?
Is it there? Is it there?
Oh yeah. Oh.
All right. My pleasure is my baby. I have the pleasure of being not his biological dad, but to his dad at heart. Um, Being able to be loved by like just in the most unconditional form, just having somebody that's always like just making sure that I'm good. Like even though he don't even know nothing about the world too much yet, and just always just striving to protect him and just to make sure that he has it better than I did, and just to be able to like I don't know. It's so many times I watch like a video of us before I go into work just to make sure that like, I'm calm before I go up in there. Or like a lot of my dreams now I have because I have him. I I tear up, I cry at night. It's so I didn't know that a kid that's not even mine would flip my world the way that he has, but yeah, that is my biggest pleasure right there. It's being is that being my baby.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And Quincy, your turn. Quincy reading.
First, Orange Digger would like to show his pleasure what he has in his mouth right now. A Newport cigarette, everybody. I'm
Okay.
keeping his mouth shut because it's on DV to me. If he says, if I say anything inappropriate, stay on my door right now, bitch. No, a cigarette is my pleasure. Can y'all see me? Oh, I'm too close to the camera. Oh, I'm too close to the camera. Yeah. I love cigarettes. Cigarettes bring me joy. Now you can go to the Destiny Child in the back. So I was wondering if I could share my screen really fast because
No, I mean, can you share like your picture in the thing or change your
it's an animated picture at that, and let me see. Hold on. Let me see if I can.
yeah, you have to drop it in the chat.
To drop in the chat. If I can, I'll just put it in the Discord. It looks like you're not gonna let me drop it in the chat. I'll just put it in the Discord for y'all. So basically, started doing ARR and really ventured to it. And I just now with a couple of my friends that have helped me made it animated. So I did a picture of Kanye, Will Smith, and a couple of other people on there. So I just put in chat everyone.
Will you put Kanye on there?
It's Kanye. When you see it, it's looping. Actually, it actually looping. It actually me moving the picture moment by moment by moment. It's called stop motion, but it's all this just me doing that, and it's different thing. I put in the Discord for y'all to see.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, that concludes our show and tell. Thank y'all for sharing. So let's talk about. Let's just ask some very simple questions that can get kind of deep. Um, so the first question, let's think about the way pleasure is depicted in various media as opposed to how it's depicted and discussed among real life people. What kind of impact do these portrayals have on people and their relationships? And I know it's a long question. So basically, the question is, think about how pleasure and sexuality is on mainstream media, and how does that translate to how we actually experience that in our real lives?
It gives you false expectations of what it is that you are going after. One, I actually shouldn't even say it that way. It warps what you think you want.
Right.
When you are constantly seeing, prime example is porn, I would say. If you're constantly watching people do these really outlandish, ridiculous things, you're gonna want to try to do that. But then once you do it, it's like, yeah, no, this ain't it. As opposed to figuring out what it is that you want instead of trying to do what everybody else is doing.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. Now that part. So think about like this entire conversation that we've been having, right? And about how we've learned how pleasure is informed by your desires. Your desires are kind of informed by what you see. And mainstream media is also literally pushing us. Like, so basically, mainstream media is basically telling you what to find pleasurable. And then we do that. Even if it's not pleasurable, even if it's not that great, because as we already know, with the peak in rule, it doesn't have to be that great. As long as there's a good peak and it ends pretty good, then overall the experience could be totally shitty. So
it's also that you spend your money though.
That part.
On period. I was going to say,
we spend money on things we find pleasure, right?
It's called supply and demand. If it's applicable to your demand, I will supply it. And like Republicans, I'll make sure it's uprooted a little more in price so you really can't get it. So really gonna be a pleasure to you when you do get it.
I don't know, because one time I had spent some money trying to get me some. Never mind. Keep it to my.
I mean, if you think about it, the advertising industry, the marketing industry was like a $1 billion industry, right? And they spend all this money trying to, cultivate and design our own desires and pleasures, and we buy into it time and time again. They know how to reel us in with our favorite artists, our music, the colors we like, the scents. They know how to like set the mood. They know how to target specific audience if they want to target people who are more artsy or who are more rugged or country. They have every different type of channel to target every person's desires and pleasure. And I think it's until we kind of tap out of and unplug out of what media is pushing and really find out what we want instead of listening to what is being pushed to us. I don't know. Can we think of any like desires or pleasures that we thought we wanted, but once we did, or like society pushed, and it's like, man, this ain't what I wanted. Like, what? Let me see.
Think about Black women and getting perms.
That's a good idea.
That's a huge one, because all these Black women get the straight hair like this. What white women like we see on and then they get the perms, and then their scalp is fucked up. And
you should play colorism play into it, because the lighter, especially back in old school Black America, the lighter you are, the closer, the better your life will be, because you're close to a white person. Well, I'm gonna say that's only for the Black community, but anybody in the BIPOC community, period. The lighter pale you are, the closer you can get to a white community and have a better life.
Yeah,
I'll say this.
prominent in the culture too. Less prominent in the Asian culture. The whiter you are, the more privileged you are.
I'ma say this, y'all know, in the gay community, being on Grindr, I feel like that's a dang on experience right there in itself. Sitting over there thinking you finna be with somebody who finna give you some good, and they sitting over there giving you a badass experience. You sitting over there putting yourself out there like that, knowing damn well you got some trash ass head and some trash ass ass.
And the only reason why you keep going back is why? Because you come.
Because of the possibility of getting something different.
There's the
Or
sense of
something better.
that
Yeah.
experience. What you said, the highs and those peaks.
The peaks and the
out of that
end.
experience, you're still getting something that keeps you coming back
Yeah.
to Grindr, knowing you don't like it.
Yeah, you know.
It's a big ass menu.
Let's get even deeper. So, what? Oh shit! I can't even see this thing. Hold on. All right. Do you feel that Black LGBTQ people have had the same pleasures that are portrayed in mainstream media?
Nope.
Hell
Now,
no.
do Black? Wait, say that again.
Do Black LGBT people have access to the same pleasure portrayed in mainstream media?
Matter of fact, I'm gonna say yeah, we do, but it is up to other people to sit over there and be able to give us that opportunity. But I'm gonna say that because at the end of the damn day, it is very many talented Black LGBTQ plus people that's in the mainstream media right now that's not getting their flowers, that deserve their damn flowers. People working to these movies, people working on this music and all that mess, they not getting their just dues, and I don't feel like that's fair.
Here. But I will challenge that to say, and I'm only going to go off of what happened with me this past weekend. So, like, I have a white friend. I'm that guy. I have a white friend. And a part of me always thought that I needed a white friend in order to get access to certain spaces. But when I was in the space, I realized I wasn't relying on him to get me through the door. Mind you, we're just at a restaurant. And I'm just like, I set that block for myself that I wasn't able to get into that space. But once I was there, I was like, I'm not depending on this individual who opened the door or who got me to this space. I was dependent on myself in order to navigate that situation. So we have access to that same privilege, to all the privileges associated with being a Black queer person. Some of the privileges we don't necessarily like nor want, I will go so far to say. And the chief of that one is we're not viewed as a threat. So therefore, we gain access to spaces that certain men within our community aren't allowed into. So I say, I enjoy the privilege, but at the same time, I know what I'm doing when I'm inside of that and harness that privilege properly. And I hope I answered the question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did. Absolutely.
But I have something to say about that. So I'm gonna pay Willie the advocate to Javon and Star's thing. So yes, I know my privilege when it comes to be a Black queer male in the society, but also you gotta think, and we just had a discussion like maybe a minute ago, like why haven't we seen other Black queer people with other Black queer people of color in mainstream media as a couple? Or in the mainstream movies portrayed is always the Black male with, if it's not a white male, it's a white male, and a miracle white male. Then also think of that we are a fetish to some people, like Lil Nas X. To me, is feeding a fetish to people because why Saucy Santana be out here being Saucy Santana from the beginning. And we know Salty Santana was from Florida. He ratchet, he ghetto, he's everything that they don't want to see. But Lil Nas X is the total polar opposite. And y'all respect him than Salty Santana.
Desirability politics.
And I believe they fetishized off of Lil Nas X just because that he took the route he took, and also how he way that he fit, because his queerness get him to places where, you know, in Black society you couldn't fit into these places. And I feel that is, we definitely not, and no, we definitely don't have the same rights when it comes to that. And if we do, it's always still, you're still Black. At the end of the day, you're still Black, and we still have to fight for our voice to be heard, or for us to say this is content that we want to see as Black people, and we want to see Black love on TV. Just like oh my goodness, Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark was the first a big thing of you seeing Black love on TV, other than Dio's Chronicles. That's come back soon.
Oh my God. You are taking it back.
The Dio Chronicles or Noah's Ark, that was the two only shows that actually show Black gay love in front of your face and show the both downsides and down what you see now will pop up. Like they did another adaptation of Queer as Folk, and they tried to do the Black way, but they still wanted to adapt it as Queer as Folk. I said, why is that? Why couldn't it be an adaptation of Noah's Ark or the D.L. Chronicles? But I tried to do a derivative of Queer as Folk. A white, they had the cast was all white, all Caucasian. Not a single color person in there. You might have seen color, you know, in different scenes, but not a single person on there.
Did you say Caucasian?
Caucasian, yes, Caucasian.
I fucking love it.
You have to think about.
But
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, the only reason that is with the whole interracial relationships on mainstream television, they have to see themselves in the context of the story in some way, some fashion. And the only way some people, in this particular case, white people, understand love or acceptance of someone else is to actually love them. And that is their way into the story, period. And that is a plot device in order to get audiences in. It sucks ass because it sacrifices that very thing, which is Black love. And it tells Black gay men, period, that they have to have a white person in order to have love or to feel love and all this shit. Conditioning in the television programming.
I mean,
but, yeah.
look, thank you for sharing. But if you just think about a Zales commercial or any kind of commercial where they promote, Valentine's Day. Think about all the traditions that we have surrounding, like kids courting, kids dating, and all that stuff. Like, as queer people, especially as Black queer people, we definitely don't have any of that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? We don't have access to that same pleasure of being able to take your date to the prom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Simple stuff like that. We don't have those same sort of access to. I feel like, like things that cishet white people have access to. Think about businesses. Like, think about the people who own businesses, and those are usually cishet white folks.
Yeah. And this question right here, it's a loaded question because it's asking quite a few things. The first thing it's asking is, do you feel like Black people have access to pleasures portrayed in mainstream media? And that's an already marginalized community there. Then you have the LGBTQ community, who's also extremely marginalized within the marginalized community. So, and then you're talking about access, and then you're asking about pleasures, thinking that our pleasures align are even the same, and they're not. And so that's the whole thing. Like, our pleasures may not even be the same what mainstream is portraying.
Exactly.
And also, I want to say as a disabled representation, you really, that's a loaded question. But actually, if someone would ask me that's outside this group, I would give them my blunt answer. I said, first of all, it don't represent. I said, you never seen disabled love out there. And then when you get a disabled Black person that is queer, you get someone, they always shout out Roland Ray. And I said, I dislike him. I ain't gonna say I hate him because he's a sister in the community, but at the same time, I just don't like the antics and all that. And you being a really Uncle Tom, a token funny Black bad influence it where you don't see somebody like myself that's disabled and trying to spread and bridge the fact that, hey, you don't gotta accept me, but disrespect me.
And Quincy, that's a conversation to be had too. Like your experience being disabled, and how that also impacts your queerness. Like that's a conversation that needs to be had.
So, y'all ready to move on to the next question? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. So, what's missing? What desires, fears do you have of pleasure? What pleasurable things do you feel are out of your reach?
Nothing is out of my reach unless I say it is. And my fears as it pertains to pleasure is that I know I can have a good time. Sometimes I have a difficulty stopping.
I mean, but think about the scenario where you just mentioned earlier about the restaurant, right? So if you didn't have that white friend with you, would you have had fear towards going into that restaurant by yourself?
So check it. I was thinking that as I was sitting there, which made me realize that I was solely engaged in my own self and not interacting with the person I was there with. And I felt kind of shitty, but I was also like, yay, anxiety is kicking my ass right now. Because it got me to thinking like, oh my God, all these people are noticing that I'm the only Black person in this space with another white person.
Right.
Not another white person, but like the only other white person in the space. And I was just like, this is weird.
Right.
And I was like,
so it's like
that's not even, no, but essentially what it is that I have to do in those situations, I really just have to check myself.
Right.
Like, nobody else is checking for you, bitch. This is all in your mind. And calm the fuck down because I'm making scenarios that aren't even my reality. Like, sure, I'm in this space with this individual, but don't nobody know what the fuck is going on here. And I don't know what the hell any of these other people are talking about. So it's like, as it pertains to the pleasure aspect of it, it's like, get my pleasure, get your pleasures, however, but also moderation, moderation, moderation.
Yeah, but
that's just for me.
Do you think that white people have that same sort of anxiety when they're going to a restaurant?
Hell yeah. I just think that the difference is, and I can't even say the difference because I was somewhat brought up this way. The world is their oyster, and they're taught that this world is theirs. When we tell kids to, particularly Black children, don't do that because so-and-so is going to watch or so-and-so is going to think this. And then we just instill that. Like we can't behave in a certain way because somebody else is going to watch and judge us and whatever may happen. White kids don't necessarily have that. They are taught to do whatever the fuck freely because why not? So when we see Black kids do the same thing, and I firmly believe everybody should do this, just live freely fuck up because literally it is your life. Do it. Figure out what the fuck you need to figure out and understand that you have the capability and I'm speaking very personally from this shit.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Had I been born in another era, would not be the case.
Yeah.
So like, I think we're all being brought up in an era where we have that freedom to explore our pleasures. And as we're seeing with society as a whole, even straight men are feeling comfortable enough to explore what it is to have pleasure completely within one's body. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to go in on that?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I'll be brief. So I ask, what desires or fears you have of pleasure. I think growing up, there was a level of fear associated with like fully pleasuring myself in the sense of like exploring my whole body, whether it's my penis or my rectum or whatever. Like really feeling okay with that because it goes against like the heteronormative idea of what sex is, and so attempting to explore that was kind of nerve wracking and going along with all that. So it was definitely something I had to overcome and really uh focus on getting out of that headspace, and also ask what pleasurable things do you feel are out of your reach. um as I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm learning about pleasure, I don't think it's something that I can't obtain. It's just something that I will have to learn and get better at, or be a student of. So yeah, that's me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Adrian, for sharing that. So, now being a disabled queer male baby, and it still passes my head from time to time of the acceptance of being wanted, the acceptance of can I have a relationship that's pleasurable without making it one sided, but they feel like and this goes with a lot of people that's in disabled community that I have talked to that to say I don't want to feel like the person I'm dating feel like they're my caretakers. I have people like that for. I mean, they want to help or whatever, that'll be fine. But I have people like that. I want you to love me for me because I love you for you, and I understand you for you because I understand myself, and that's a fear right there of that. Then there's always the friendship pleasure feel like, you know what, I'm disabled. And what if I sit at a table with all these able body walking people and they don't see me as an equal because I'm in the wheelchair or because I'm blind or deaf. And we all are queer, we all are under the alphanumerical BIPOC Black scope of things, but do they think I'm their equal or do they think I'm this disposable? So it crosses my mind from time to time when I sit at tables or when I sit at different places. But then, the words of James Baldwin, I just hear him say, and it's a quote from Giovanni's room, if I didn't open the door or sit at the table and speak up or just being there, they wouldn't know that I was there at that table or the door. So I always that I ain't gonna say it's severe. I ain't gonna say it's not severe. It's severe that go back and forth my mind all the time. But like the James Baldwin quote I just quoted, it always dissipate once I hear that quote cited, and I just go and do what I do best, and just be Quincy. And I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Quincy.
I have an answer to this from my point of view.
Okay.
So, what desires or fears do you have about pleasure? So, you guys, it seems like you guys answered it in a different way. Okay. So, when I was listening to you guys, I was thinking about how growing up, I have a lot of brothers, and most of my friends were guys growing up, and I would be the only girl who plays football at a lot of football camps and play basketball and soccer. I was always the only girl, and people would say stuff like, "Hey, girls don't play soccer. Girls don't play football," and I was like, "Well, growing up, I wanted to be a guy because other people says this is what guys do. But more recently, it's like, hey, I'm a woman and I'm embracing that. It's like women can play sports too. So sports is one. And another, since half my family's black and half my family's Asian, I've been growing up with diversity in a lot of different places. Has I live in Baltimore, and Baltimore has a lot of black people. So I'm usually the only Asian person, and my man is black. So that's going to places people always look at us. Like Asian people would look at us, and black people is like, oh, why are you with an Asian person, or why are you with a black person? So I just want to live my life. That's a fear and desire mixed in one. And what pleasurable things do you feel are out of your reach? Well, it's right now, but in the future, it will be in reach. To introduce my boyfriend, my man, to my Asian side of the family, because traditions and stuff. But yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Anybody else? Well, yeah, it was good to hear everybody's different perspectives, because as you can tell, like we said earlier, the pleasure is relative to you and your desires as a person. um I feel that for me, a lot of what I like aspire, or desire for, my pleasure has to do with like freedom, and maybe that looks like, being able to like just travel and have and do whatever I want, and um, live my best life, I guess. And I feel like that is what's out of my reach because of my identity, because because the society is not really built for a person like me. um, I feel like having that sort of lifestyle is out of my reach, just because I will always have to like put in extra effort, because I'm black and I'm queer. Um, and yeah, that's kind of where I went with the question. Um, so yeah, moving on. Last question. Who do you think has more access to pleasure than Black LGBTQ people? And who do you believe has more access to pleasure within the Black LGBT community? It's a two-part question. So, like outside of us, who do you think has more pleasure? Well, obviously, I would say white people. Cishet.
I'll say
Straight white men.
Straight white men.
That's the standard of pleasure.
hit the nail on the head right there.
Yeah. And then as far as like our community, within our community, I would say who has like the most privilege in our community, in the Black LGBT community, are well, like fit, good looking, light skin,
Desirable.
Straight passing men.
So like I'm of the school of thought where access literally means, hey, you now have a pathway to getting X, Y, and Z. Never mind all the obstacles that are in your way and stopping you from getting to that shit, right?
Mm.
We all have the same access. I have access to it. I know it's there. I see it.
Mm.
But all this shit stopping me from getting there,
Mm.
hindering my access because of, hey, I'm Black, because I don't identify as male anymore. But all this other shit, I just, like you said, you have to work that much harder. But at the same time, I started to realize it's only as hard as I make it. And that's not to say that these things are not real. These constructs, these realities that we all face is indeed real. I just stopped caring about the shit in the context of I saw the beauty in what it was that got it to be what it is. It's because I'm Black that I'm able to go after it. It's because I'm queer that I don't care about a lot of shit. And it's like these things that are often viewed as hindrances. I'm like, yo, that's like my superpower type shit, you know? Like it is because of all that we've gone through that we're able to still fight. Yes, it sucks that we have to fight to get the shit, but it feels good once we beat that ass and got the shit, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good assessment, I think, especially since we've been talking about um, how we sort of need some adversity in our lives in order to find value in certain things. So essentially, what you're saying is something that we um, something that we find pleasurable and attain that is more valuable than something that a white person might find pleasurable and attain quite easily with their access. Is that
Not necessarily that. I just
okay?
stopped caring about the person. I don't think about the white person at all. Because honestly, that's not going to fix or change anything for me.
Right. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, it's like, that's what he got. That's what he was born into. Those are his privileges. Yay for him. But I also have my own set of privileges that I can't deny because it would be doing a disservice to myself and the community around me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to tap in? No. All right. Well, this was the end of today's wellness check. I hope we kind of touched on some things that was informative. I hope you learned a little bit of something. Um, Anybody have anything before we close out?
I love and miss y'all. You know.
A positive affirmation for everybody out there. Just remember that you are art and that art needs to be shown. So just remember, tell the world, I'm here, baby. And when you fall down, you just dust yourself right off and hold your hand like you have a piece of cake in it and tell them to eat it.
Period.
My positive affirmation is your voice matters. Use it.
Thank you.
I would say, if you still wellness check, you can have pain without pleasure. You can't have pleasure without pain. It's just one side of
Good point. Thank you.
Wasn't that a song?
You can hit that.
Joy and pain,
Okay.
the sunshine and the rain. Come on, black folks, for telling this shit way back when.
Okay. My positive affirmation for today is going to be I decide who I am.
Straight up. I really want a cigarette now. Thank you.
Oh, I bet you love a cigarette. Oh, thank you. Well, I got a song for y'all, and it's called Black and Gay. It's the theme song. Been working on it for years, on top of years. Sorry, that cigarette smoke in my face. Oh, black and gay. Oh, black and gay. How Orange Digger is the only orange puppet in Black and Gay. You can be two-spirited, queer, lesbian, gay, bi, trans, intersex, in the plus. Oh, but you are black and gay. Oh, black and gay. All the cis hetero women out there that's Asian, you're black and gay. Oh, please shut up the fuck up. See, I didn't want to. I want to. Oh my goodness, help me! Oh my goodness, help.
Wow, I love it.
All right. Thank you, Quinn. Thank you, Orange Digger. Star, you're up.
Okay, this is not really a positive affirmation, but more like something to do. I wanted to leave all of y'all with this. At the end of a hard day, whether it be a hard day's work or just a hard day in general, give yourself a round of applause for for a job well done of sitting over there dealing with whatever bullshit you have to deal with during that day. Life is getting too damn short for you to not be giving yourself enough credit for all the shit that you got to put up with it that you don't even ask for. Okay.
Yes.
Because child, it's too much motherfucking shit happening out here, and
Message.
it's too much love not going on in the world. So yeah, at the end of a hard day's work, give yourself a round of applause because bitch, this shit was motherfucking hard.
Yeah.
And if you need to, take an intermission and do it then also.
Also, if you need to smoke a blunt and have some wine,
Oh, that
you
cigarette.
don't.
You forgot the cigarette.
I ain't mad at it.
Just remember, mental health matters. Intermissions, all that. Oh yeah, y'all can't hear me because I just want to fight, and I'm running away from the cops right now. But just remember, I'm looking for a new PR. Happy Mental Health Indigenous American Day and all that. I love y'all so much. Orange Digger does. I'm out.
I love it. I love it.
Bye, guys. All right, y'all. Well, Javon, did you do one?
Oh, and what was I supposed to be doing again?
A positive affirmation.
Positive affirmation. Decide, commit, succeed.
Period. I love it. All right. Well, that concludes our wellness check for today. So if anybody is interested in the Art Alliance workshop on Wednesday, make sure you get your tickets. That's going to be instructed by Adrian. It's been really fun. If you don't know what it is, go check our YouTube. You can see the playback, the replay of what it was last week. We had a lot of fun. So if you want to join this Wednesday, go to the website and register. The tickets are donation based. Anything else happening this week?
I
Yep.
forgot to tell y'all. I put my picture in the thingy in the chat. I finally did it.
Oh.
For afterwards, but I didn't want to interrupt the presentation because it was so beautiful and so knowledgeable and so informative.
Thank you. I'm glad y'all learned something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned a lot too doing the research for this, especially about the pleasure. I mean, the peak in thing. I think that's really interesting. Even doctors use that. Like, if you ever went to a doctor and like they make you stay longer or a little bit at the end, they're doing that so that you don't have like a terrible experience at the end. Because a lot of times, like when you go to the doctor, it hurts, right? It's like painful, and so that is like the high, the peak, right? And so they want to make sure that at the end of it, you're like a little bit more relaxed so that you'll come back. Kind of crazy.
Ain't no reason in hell I need to be up in there waiting 5 hours only for y'all to give me some damn ibuprofen and tell me to sit my bitch ass down. I'm sorry.
No, that's a thing, especially when I used to do dialysis where I have 4 patients and you get one patient that was mad when they entered the door. It was my job to when I got you on the sheet of that to make sure that your dialysis, like your 5 hours or whatever time that you was on the machine for was pleasurable, that you had the right TV, that you was all comfortable. I would give you 5 stars at all times. And at the end, you said I'm a little woozy, but I was felt so good just being here. I know my life a little better. But that, yeah, definitely that.
All right, y'all. Well, thank y'all so much for being here tonight. I really, really appreciate everybody for coming in and sharing their experiences. So good night. I hope y'all have a good night. Sleep well.
Bye.
Bye.
Love, peace, and hair grease.
Good night. Night, night, night. Okay, ending in 3, 2, 1.